Hello everyone and welcome to my Soap Twist 24 channel. I hope everyone is having a wonderful day. Before we begin, please hit the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. Deacon had always been the outsider, the man who had fought his way into the opulent world of the Forrestos and Spencers through pure tenacity and a stubborn heart. He wasn't born into their wealth or drama, yet he was drawn to it repeatedly, like a moth to a flame. Today, however, he was not come to charm or struggle for a seat at the table. He came here to destroy one. Bill Spencer stood across the room, his broad shoulders squared, and his jaw set in that immovable way that exuded authority. He was used to dictating every story and outcome. But the expression in Deacon's eyes, wild, raw, and unusually steady, caused a flash in Bill's chest. Perhaps there is some doubt. Or fear. He didn't know yet. Katie Logan, ever the observer, stood close with her arms crossed and her gaze flitting between the two men. She knew the storm approaching, but nothing could have prepared her for what was to come. "Bill," Deacon whispered, his voice low but cutting through the background noise like a scalpel. "We should talk. Now." Bill's lips twisted into a sneer, but it lacked his customary assurance. "What's this about, Sharp? Do you have another sob story to sell?" Deacon did not flinch. He moved closer, holding up the paper. "This is not a story. This is the truth. And it will change everything." Katie's breath caught. She knew Deacon well enough to know when he wasn't lying. His words carried weight, causing her stomach to twist. "What's going on, Deacon?" she inquired, her voice barely above a whisper. He did not glance at her. His gaze was fixed on Bill, who was beginning to notice the shift in the room. The crew had become quiet, sensing the strain. Even the director, who is typically yelling directions, was still observing. "It's about Luna," Deacon remarked, and the name echoed through the crowd. Luna Nozawa, the brilliant young designer who wowed Forrester Creations with her bold ideas and calm charm, had recently been the focus of gossip. Rumors of her pregnancy circulated, encouraged by her unexpected closeness to Bill, a guy who appeared to collect difficulties like trophies. But Deacon's next remarks crushed those rumors to dust. "She's not pregnant." Bill's smirk faded. "What are you talking about? You know nothing about Luna." "I know more than you realize," Deacon answered, unfolding the page. His hands shook, but his voice remained calm, propelled by something deeper than anger, grief, perhaps, or betrayal. "It's a DNA test. And it proves something you won't want to hear." Katie stepped forward, her heart racing. "Deacon, you need to quit. Whatever it is, you don't have to do it here." He shook his head, his gaze still fixed on Bill. "No, Katie. This needs to be done. He needs to know. You all do." Bill's patience broke. "Enough of theatrics, Sharp. Spit it out." Deacon took a big breath and spoke sharply. "Luna is not pregnant, Bill. But you are her father." The room fell silent. Katie's palm shot to her mouth, suppressing a gasp. Bill's face was drained of color, his eyes wide and unfocused. The team exchanged looks, unsure whether this was part of the script or something far more genuine. But the pain in Deacon's voice, the raw edge, left no question. This was not fiction. "That's impossible," Bill remarked, his voice wavering. "Luna's mother, Poppy," Deacon interjected. "Poppy Nozawa lied to you. She lied to everybody. Luna isn't just any female who showed up at Forrester. She's your daughter, Bill. And this," he held out the document, his knuckles white, "proves it." Katie's thoughts raced. She'd known Luna's mother, Poppy, as a brief presence in Bill's life years before, a lady who came and went like so many others. But this was something else entirely. She searched Bill's face for a response, but he was staring at Deacon, his expression a mix of incredulity and something darker, guilt, perhaps, or shame. "How did you get this?" Bill demanded, his voice raised. "Where did you even?" "I found it," Deacon replied, his voice breaking. "I was not looking for it, Bill. I swear I wasn't. But I was going through some old documents at Il Giardino, attempting to clear up the mess left by Poppy when she worked there. I noticed a letter she had written in a file. It was addressed to you, but she didn't send it. It told it all, how she discovered she was pregnant and how she didn't want to tell you because she knew you'd never leave your family. She had the DNA test done years ago to make sure. And it's you, Bill. It's always been you. Katie's legs were wobbly. She slid onto a neighboring chair, her mind trying to digest everything. Was Luna, a vivacious young woman who had become a fixture at Forrester, Bill's daughter? It didn't seem feasible, but the pieces were starting to fit. Luna's attraction to Bill, their unspoken link. Katie had attributed it to infatuation and rumors of a pregnancy, but this was something completely different. Something much more painful. Bill shook his head, clenching his fists. This is insane. Poppy would have informed me. She wouldn't have kept anything like this. She did, Deacon murmured, his tone softening and even pitying. She concealed it from you, for 20 years, Bill. She reared Luna on her own, keeping her away from you and all of this. And now Luna's here, and she doesn't even know. The words hung in the air like a cloud. Luna did not know. She'd been working beside Bill, joking with him and confiding in him, completely oblivious that he was her father. The thought made Katie's chest ache. She remembered her own kid, Will, and the link she had tried so hard to maintain. The thought of his not knowing who she was, of growing up without that knowledge, was awful. Bill's voice was barely audible when he spoke again. Why now? Why are you telling me this right now? Deacon's shoulders dropped, and Katie realized what a toll it was taking on him. He was not just furious or vengeful, he was broken. Because I care about her, he explained. Luna has been through enough. She deserves to understand who she is. Bill lurched back, clutching the edge of a table for support. You deserve to know you have a daughter. The guy who had built an empire and stood firm in the face of scandals and betrayals appeared to be unraveling. Katie wanted to go to him and say something, anything, to alleviate the shock, but she was frozen, her own heart racing. Where is she? Bill inquired, his voice husky. Where is Luna? Deacon hesitated, his eyes flickering with something Katie couldn't decipher. She isn't here. She left the set around an hour ago. I attempted to stop her, but she's been acting strange recently. I believe she is starting to suspect something is wrong. Maybe not this, but anything. Katie stood, her instincts taking over. We need to find her. If this is true, she cannot hear it from anybody else. She needs to hear it from us. Bill nodded, but his gaze was distant, lost in a tempest of his own creation. I didn't know, he muttered. I swear I didn't know. The rest of the day was a blur. Katie and Deacon scoured the city, calling Luna's phone, checking her apartment, her favorite coffee shop, and wherever she could have gone. However, she was nowhere to be located. Bill remained behind, too terrified to join the hunt, his mind stuck in a cycle of what-if scenarios. What if he had known? What if Poppy had informed him? Would he have been a father to Luna? Would he have been better for his boys, Liam and Wyatt, who had grown up under the weight of his ambition? As night fell, Katie and Deacon arrived at Il Giardino, the restaurant where Deacon discovered the letter that altered everything. They sat at a corner table, the room strangely silent after hours. Deacon glanced at the letter, which was now crumpled and worn from being handled so frequently. Katie leaned across the table and rested her hand on his. You did the right thing, she stated softly, even if it hurts. Deacon shook his head, his eyes bloodshot. Did I? I just ruined her life, Katie. Bill's life, too. And for what? Can they both sense this pain? Katie squeezed his hand. Telling the truth is never easy. But it's better than lying. Luna deserves to understand who she is. And Bill, he's got a chance now to be the father he never knew he could be. Deacon laughed bitterly. Bill Spencer is a father. To Luna. Could you imagine? Katie gave a weak smile, but her heart was not in it. She could imagine it all too clearly. She'd seen Bill at his finest with their kid, Will, fiercely protective and endlessly loyal, even when he stumbled along the way. But this was different. Luna was not a child. She was a young woman who had established a life without him, growing up with secrets she was unaware of. How do you get into someone's life like that after all this time? The next morning, Luna appeared again. She went into Forrester Creations as if nothing had happened, her smile brilliant but fragile. Katie was waiting with her heart in her throat. Bill stood nearby, his typical confidence replaced by rawness and uncertainty. Deacon was nowhere to be found. He declared he couldn't face her just yet. "Luna," Katie whispered softly, stepping forward. "Can we talk?" Luna's smile faded. "What is going on?" "You guys look like someone died," Katie said, looking at Bill, who was staring at Luna as if she were a puzzle. "It's not that," Katie said. "But there's something you should know. Something crucial." Luna's gaze tightened, her guard raised. "Okay, what is it?" Bill stepped forward, his voice unsteady. "Luna, I'm not sure how to say this, but I'm your father." The words hung in the air, heavy and definitive. Luna's expression went blank, her gaze shifting between Bill's and Katie's, as if waiting for the joke. However, there was none. Her countenance crumpled gradually, and she took a step back, shaking her head. "No," she said, her voice barely audible. "That is not true." Bill's voice broke as he said, "Poppy lied. She did not inform me, Luna. I didn't know till yesterday. But it is true. I have proof." Luna's hands trembled as she reached for the paper Bill was holding, the same one Deacon had displayed the day before. She glanced at it, her gaze swept over the words, statistics, and incontrovertible facts. She turned and walked out without saying anything. Katie moved to follow, but Bill grabbed her arm. "Let her go," he replied, his voice full of sorrow. "She needs time." The days that followed were spent in quiet anguish. Luna skirted Forrester Creations, ignored calls, and vanished into the city. Bill pushed himself into the job, but his heart wasn't in it. Katie tried to keep everyone together, but she felt the fractures deepening. Deacon, meantime, carried his guilt like a burden, troubled by the letter he discovered and the devastation it had caused. Luna didn't return until a week later. She arrived in Bill's office, eyes red but determined. She didn't sit and didn't look at him directly. Instead, she stood near the window, looking out at the metropolitan skyline. "I don't know how to do this," she admitted ultimately. "I struggled to picture you as a father. I lived a life, Bill. It was not flawless, but it was mine. And now it all seems like a lie." Bill stood, his hands limp at his sides. "I didn't know, Luna. If I had, I would've," she interrupted, her voice fierce. "Have you been there? Have you been a dad? You didn't even know I existed. So you want to just walk in? Is it really that easy?" "It's not easy," Bill replied. "I understand it's not. But I want to try. I want to know you." Luna's eyes welled up with tears, but she blinked them away. "I don't even know who I am anymore." Katie, who had been quietly watching from the doorway, entered. "Luna, you're still yourself. This does not affect the situation. It simply adds to it. And we're all here to help you figure it out." Luna stared at her, then at Bill, and for a little while, the room went silent. Then she nodded once and walked out again. It wasn't forgiveness quite yet, but it was a beginning. The narrative did not end there. It couldn't. Lives don't end neatly in Los Angeles, or in the world of the Forrestos and Spencers. Luna started visiting Bill, tentatively at first, then more frequently. They spoke, although hesitantly and painfully. Deacon remained on the sidelines, watching, his heart heavy with the realization that he had set things into action. Katie, ever the anchor, kept them all together, even though her heart grieved for what may have been. And Poppy? She had departed from the city, leaving only the letter and a daughter who was only beginning to realize the gravity of her situation. The grief persisted, a quiet undercurrent underneath the splendor and drama of their world. But there was something more in that sadness, a frail but tenacious optimism that they would be able to mend. Katie's eyes expanded in the room, revealing her heart fractured in real time. She'd always understood that her existence with Bill was based on a delicate balance of truth and pride, but the revelation tossed everything into disarray. She mumbled his name once, softly and brokenly, as if it would bring him back to her. But it did not. Bill couldn't even meet her gaze. the weight of shame pressed too hard against his chest. Luna had been sitting silently in the corner, attempting to blend with the furniture. She wasn't the storm that raged throughout the night, despite widespread speculation. Her shaking fingers fell into her lap, and her face paled as she shook her head. Not pregnant. Not a secret. Not the one to blame. For weeks, speculation had clung to her like a shadow she couldn't shake, and while she was delighted to be free of the deception, the damage of mistrust remained. But the question lingered in the air, weighty and jagged. If not her, who? The silence after Deacon's revelation was unbearable, like a wound that refused to heal. Bill finally spoke, his voice low and strained. "This can't be real," he murmured, yet the truth was right in front of him. Deacon had not come here to trick or wound for fun. His eyes were bleak and honest, with a hollow sadness that stated he didn't enjoy being the bearer of such bad news. Katie pressed her palm to her mouth, tears streaming down. She reflected on all the years squandered on half-truths, and how she had constructed her life on a foundation that had always been more frail than she realized. She recalled nights spent waiting for Bill to get home, convinced herself that loyalty was sufficient to link them. She remembered whispered promises in the dark, which now felt broken. Luna's relief turned to remorse. She had wished desperately for the accusations to stop, for people to stop viewing her as a disaster waiting to happen, but suddenly someone else was under the spotlight. Someone else's secrets were about to unfold. She recognized the harshness of that weight, and it made her want to scream, even though her own name was no longer being dragged through murmurs. Deacon's jaw was tense, and his hands tightened as if to support himself. He had been carrying this proof for days, even weeks, waiting for the proper opportunity. He had considered hiding it, as well as protecting others involved, but the truth had a way of eating away at his conscience until everything rotted. He couldn't carry it any longer. After saying it aloud, he felt nothing but emptiness. Bill rose from his chair, wobbly, his hands trembling with rage and sorrow. He had always believed that power, money, and influence could protect him from betrayal. But betrayal was not something a guy could buy himself out of. It arrived slowly, seeping into the places where trust should have been. He stared at Katie, her shoulders slumped, her sobbing muted, and realized, for the first time, how completely powerless he was. Katie wanted to shout at him, asking why he hadn't seen this coming, why he had been blind. But the scream never arrived. Instead, she muttered, "What should we do now?" Her comments were not for him, Deacon, or Luna. They were for herself, as the answer was out of reach. Deacon gulped hard. He had never actually liked Bill, but he had admired Katie and even envied the way she kept her family together despite every fracture. He wished he could take back the pain in her voice, but the truth, once revealed, cannot be taken back. Luna slipped out of her chair and crossed to Katie. It felt weird to console a woman who had before looked at her with distrust, but Luna couldn't help herself. She crouched beside Katie and wrapped her arms around her shaking shoulders. Katie froze at first, then slumped into her, sobbing on the shoulder of someone she scarcely trusted but urgently needed at the time. Bill turned aside. He couldn't watch. He couldn't bear the image of his wife broken in someone else's arms, or the mirror of himself in Deacon's eyes. He stepped to the window, the city lights obscuring his view. For the first time in years, he felt small and insignificant. What was the use of having power if it couldn't safeguard the most important thing to him? The atmosphere remained heavy for a long time, the kind of silence that turned hours into minutes. Deacon eventually shattered it. "You needed to know. All of you. Lies do not stop on their own," he said before leaving. No spectacular exit or farewell shot. Only the sound of the door closing, subtle yet final. The three who remained behind sensed the absence immediately. Katie raised her head from Luna's shoulder, her cheeks smeared with tears. She needed answers and clarity. But more than anything, she wished she could be anywhere but here. Bill turned back, his voice cracking. "Katie, I swear I didn't know." She shook her head. The words didn't matter anymore. She'd heard them too many times, and in too many different ways. Promises and apologies had become useless. She stood, straightened her shoulders, and walked by him without saying a word. Her footfall echoed down the corridor, with each one feeling like a nail driven harder into Bill's chest. He did not chase her. For the first time, he realized he had no right to. Luna remained behind, staring at the floor. She reflected on her own secrets, which she still kept hidden, and wondered if they, too, might one day be revealed in a way that would break everyone around her. She considered Katie's anguish, Bill's stillness, and Deacon's steely determination. She reflected on how easily trust could be broken and how swiftly families fell apart.